Hey, what's going on, Grace family, and welcome back to our midweek check-in. So looking back at last Sunday, I just want to give a thank you to Brian Forrester for sharing the word that God had placed on your heart. And looking back at some of the things he talked about, he's really tying in the whole themes of dependence and freedom and some of the things that we're looking at as a country this time of year. And he really challenged us with his big idea, his final takeaway. I want to get it right here. I'll read through it. He said this, he said, in our dependence on God, we are truly free. And then he challenged us, he said, let's experience and walk in that freedom. And so I was just kind of thinking through that a little bit, and I think it's dead on. He was pulling from scripture that when we are fully dependent on God, that freedom is when it sits in. Our freedom from sin, our freedom from trying, our freedom from attempting to earn things we could never earn on our own. That list goes on and on and on. And so when we're in those moments of full dependence on who God is, that's when we get to experience that freedom. But I really appreciated his challenge to not just experience it, but to walk in it. And so for this midweek check-in, I wanted to kind of focus on that walking in it, that staying in it, continuing in that. And that's where we're going to read our verse for this week. Really well-known verse, one we quote, one most of us maybe even have memorized unintentionally. But I don't know, at least in viewing my own life, I don't know how well and consistently I live this out. But it's Galatians 2:20, and this is the New Living Translation. It says, my old self has been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. So I live in this earthly body by trusting in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. And that whole idea, it's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me, and just that crucifying self. Again, it's something we know, but I don't know how well we live it out. And so that's just my encouragement for you this week. When it comes to dependence on God, it's got to be a total denial of self and a complete willingness to crucify our flesh, to just, it's murder. It's ugly. It's brutal. And to literally kill that, slay that, lay it aside, that whole illustration of crucifixion, like we are no longer ourselves. We're going to put ourselves to death and give ourselves over to God in full dependence on him, so that it's Christ who lives in it through us. And so I just want to encourage you this week to experience that freedom, to experience that full dependence. It comes with laying ourselves down first. And I found a quote on that I thought was really applicable. It's by Andrew Murray. It's in his book on humility. And he says this, he says, humility, the place of entire dependence on God, is the first duty and the highest virtue of the creature, and the root of every virtue. And so pride, or the loss of this humility, is the root of every sin and evil. And I think he just puts it in a way where we see that combination and that battle of flesh and spirit. And so again, to just start maybe every day with a simple prayer of, God, I don't want to try this on my own. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. So less of me, God, and more of you. I put myself to death. Fill me with your Spirit. I want to depend on you fully, experience that freedom, and walk in what you have for me today. So let's choose to do that together. And looking ahead at this next Sunday, we're actually going to continue to build on that. One of the first points is our dependence on God and what that looks like. We're going to be in Mark chapter 6. We're looking at verses 6 through 9 and verse 31 as well. And it's a 2-for-1. There's 2 invitations and 2 challenges. So be reading through that, try to dissect that a little bit, and we'll look forward to learning from Christ together Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Thanks, church.